Welcome to SwordandHammer.com, 4fit.com, it's Ithaca here, and today I'm going to do a little tutorial on how to make templates to make foam armor. Well, I'm not going to show you the whole process. I'll explain a little bit of the process, but I want to give special thanks to, I believe it's Yoda Jammies, and I also think it's, I definitely know it's from Bioweapons. Could what's the WordPress, but it's Bioweapons. I'm going to use these images that I got and show you how to scale them in order to make your own templates. So without further ado, let's start this project. The first step to do is bring in your schematics. Okay, how you create these, you have to talk to some of the people who actually create the templates themselves. But what they do basically is they get 3D images or images of all angles, such as this, and then they pretty much draw their own schematics either on paper and then bring them into Photoshop and edit them, make them digital, or they just create them right there in Photoshop. Now, once you have the templates, that's where I'm going to teach you on how to scale them. Okay, first of all, I have to measure. Now, if this was me, right, I have to get a tape measure right here, all right, and a buddy of mine actually measured my back, and it actually measures for this back piece anyway. It measures down from the bottom of your butt cheeks. So I held the tape measure in that area up to about the soft spot in the back of your head. That's where you're going to measure from. Now, for my measurements, I came up with 33 inches by. Okay, and then I had to measure from under my lat, or on the left side of my lat to the right side of my lat, and right underneath the armpit for this particular armor, and that came out to be approximately 16.5 inches. So now what I had to do, I went up to File, to New, okay, and then in New I created another page. Don't mind this here, okay, I'm going to show you the actual page I created. Now this document I'm working with right here is 72 pixels, so I want to keep the rest of my documents about the same, because 300 is better for printing, but if you change your pixelation, it does change the size rate. So I'm going to keep this one at 72, and I changed it to drop down menu to inches, and then I put in the inches that I measured myself at. The width was, correction, 16.5, and the height was 33. So I changed those settings. Okay, then I hit OK, and that creates this page right here. It created a new page. It's brand new and it's blank. All right. So that's very important is over here on the right side, you'll see it says layers. I click on layers, and then that brings open all my layers. Now it does the previous work on here, but I've made each of these layers invisible until I want to show you what I did. All right. So now I have, that's my measurements. It's not a sheet of paper. That is my measurements. Now you have to transfer from your measurements to a sheet of paper. So basic concept, I went up to File and New once again, and this time up here for this drop down to presets, I went over and I dropped down and I picked US paper because that's what I'm using, and it puts in your standard 8.5 by 11 but 300 foot pixelation. So I changed this to 72 because obviously once again you want to keep it at what your other documents are, and then I hit OK. Keep in mind, when I drop the scale down by going to, or drop the view down by going to my little magnifying glass, going to negative, and I drop this down, I could drop it down and raise it up until it actually is about the size of a sheet of paper. For left and right, it will not be the size of a sheet of paper up and down. I'm not sure how Photoshop does that. It's not an accurate image right there, okay? Keep that in mind when you're working. But that's just your viewing size. It does not change the actual size of your document as it prints, all right? So now I have a standard sheet size, which is how it's going to print. Remember, there's always a margin on the left, right, and top and bottom, okay? I put some preset markings on my paper up. Obviously, so when it prints, it's going to be, this paper is going to be facing up, and then the title or whatever this image is going to be, You can put the measurements in there if you like. Okay. Now I'm going back over to here, and this is the measurements page. Now what I had to do is I have my measurements. Okay. Too easy, right? And I have my template. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, there you go, rectangle marquee tool. Okay. Click on that. I am now going to go over here and I'm going to select the piece that I want. Alright, just drag, right click, left click and drag, and then go up to edit, and then go down to copy. Alright, now I want this to go over. I'm going to go over here up top of my little menu right here, scroll over to the Untitled 2, which is my actual measurements page. Okay, now I already did this earlier, so I'm going to bring up my layers, and what you're going to do is you're going to paste that image into here. Now see, mine has already been scaled, but I'm going to tell you now it was not scaled when I brought it over, and I had to do a little bit of deletion because there was another portion of another image here. If you have to get rid of other pieces of imagery, you just go over to this little erase tool right here, and that will allow you to come over here and allow you to erase pieces you don't want inside your image. Now the way I got my reference, because look at this, here's something that's very important you need to know. This diagram is created with pieces separated. So obviously what that does is your diagram here, or the background, is made for 33 by 16.5, but if you put this image scaled to this background, yes, your overall image will be 33 by 16.5, but it will not be correct, because once you start assembling these pictures, you're eliminating these gaps. So your overall project is going to be a lot smaller than what it's supposed to be. So the way that you compensate for that is you bring in an image. This is from Bioweapons here, okay, from Evil FX. Awesome work. It's my inspiration, and I copied using my marquee tool. Okay, I chose a selection. Okay, the armor itself, the whole back area, and I also went up to edit once again and down to copy, and I copied it. Came back over to my actual document here, which is a 33 by 16.5, and I did this earlier once again. So now I'm going to open up my layers. Click on my layers right here, and I'm gonna now take out the eye from that, so it's invisible now. I'm gonna add the eye to this one, and there is what I came up with for. Okay, it was a lot smaller when I brought it in, so what I did is I went up to edit, okay, down to free transform. Okay, once you click on free transform, what it's going to allow you to do is select your edges and pull your edges out and resize this side by side until it takes up the appropriate size of your background. When I originally did this, you're looking at it now and you're like, well, wait a minute, you're not going all the way to the edge of your total background. Okay, I did. Okay, but the original background only came to here, to about here. I make my background about 1/2 inch bigger than my actual measurements. So my original white background was 33.5 by 17, because it's 0.5 greater. Now I brought this image over and I stretched it out to fit its proportions of how it's gonna to fit the background, which is my measurements, and this is all assembled. Okay, so what this is gonna do is it's gonna give you an idea of how it's gonna fit on your sheet of paper, or correction, how it's gonna fit you totally, right? Then what I did, go over to layers here again and bring the template back up. I added the template to it. Now you see here the template, and you got the actual backpack, or the back section. The template, if you go up here to the opacity, make sure blue is, make sure highlighted on the template. Go to your opacity, and drop it down to about 50%-ish. Just close enough. It's 51. Okay. Now what you're going to see is you see an invisible or a really good see-through of the template versus your actual image in the background. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to find a key location on both that you can match up. This lower section, the spinal section, is pretty much the only one that I wanted to work with. So what I did is I moved the template until it lined up with the spine. Now, let me darken this a little bit, bring the opacity back out. Now you can see, there's the opacity, you can see the spine is about lined up. Okay? Now what that did is the spine is lined up. Don't worry about the rest of this stuff not lined up, because remember, there's gaps in your template but not in your actual finished piece. So that's your starting point. This spinal section is your starting point to make sure that all your pieces will line up properly and are scaled properly. The template ends up here. Each spine piece lines up properly. Okay. Little box is slightly off, but that's okay. The rest of your spinal pieces are slightly off. It happens. Okay. But you're close enough as far as your scaling goes. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to eliminate the actual image. Alright. And now I have the appropriate size, because now remember what I did is let me show you what I did. When I brought this over, this was not scaled properly. So what I had to do is I had to once again go into Edit, and then down to Free Transform. Now see, okay, let me drop this image down some. Go back up to Edit. Let's do this again. Free Transform. See how it creates this box around it? You can select an edge. You can spin it. You can take the edge in. You can take this whole side up. This whole side inward, and you keep shifting it until this image matched the other image. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, both images had to match. This image was a lot smaller, so you use this to make it the exact same size as the other image. Now what you're doing is you're making the template based off of just this section, remember, because of the gaps, you don't want to worry about the rest, just this section. Once you kept moving this image around, stretching it out, shrinking it, whatever you had to do, until it matched the other image, then both images are actually the same size. I really hope that makes sense. And then you just hit up one of your other buttons and it will ask you to apply, and you apply it. Now, when I first did this template was larger than my actual canvas, okay? But I knew that the scaling, and the reason it was bigger is because of these gaps in the armor. Remember, the original image I brought in of the real back was precise to my measurements, 33 by 16.5, right? But now with these gaps in here on the template, it pushes it, makes it a lot higher, and because these are spread out instead of rounded off around your sides, it makes it wider. So now your template, even though it's scaled properly, is going to be, the image itself is flat, so it's going to push out further. So now you've got to make your canvas bigger.